Tonight, a last-minute scramble for every last vote in Indiana, where Hillary Clinton desperately needs a win over Barack Obama. We'll talk one-on-one with both candidates. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, the worst natural disaster in Southeast Asia since the tsunami. After a cyclone kills thousands and leaves many more homeless in Myanmar, Laura Bush urges the military regime to accept U.S. assistance. And it's not only beautiful, coral can save human lives. Now this man is out to save the coral before it disappears.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. We're coming up on another critical showdown between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. The primaries in Indiana and North Carolina tomorrow could end the battle for the Democratic nomination or keep it going once again. A new CBS News New York Times poll of Democratic voters nationwide shows them just about evenly split between Clinton and Obama. In the all-important race for delegates, Obama leads by 142. A total of 187 are up for grabs tomorrow in Indiana and North Carolina. We have extensive coverage tonight, beginning with Dean Reynolds covering the Obama campaign in Indianapolis tonight. And Dean, Senator Obama is coming off a couple of really tough weeks, and he'd like to change the storyline.
That's right, Katie. He would love to win someplace to show that his campaign has not stalled. This morning in Evansville, Indiana.
This is going to be a tight election here in Indiana. You know, every poll shows it is a dead heat. We need every single vote.
Tight, too, in North Carolina.
I want your vote.
A quick trip there this afternoon was unavoidable, given that a once double-digit Obama lead has nerve-wrackingly narrowed. And yet, despite what he acknowledges has been a rough couple of weeks, our poll finds the percentage of voters who view Obama favorably has gone up, and that nearly 7 out of 10 Democrats say he handled the uproar over his former pastor appropriately. Of course, Obama victories in both states tomorrow could end the confusion and end the race. Katie?
Dean Reynolds, thanks very much. Jim Axelrod, meanwhile, is about 100 miles south of Indianapolis in New Albany, covering the Clinton campaign. And Jim, Indiana is a must-win for Senator Clinton, isn't it?
That's right, Katie. And right now, top Clinton aides are confident that blue-collar white voters will provide the margin for that victory tomorrow.
I may get knocked down, but I will always get right back up.
Clinton is tailoring her final pitch to her base, casting herself as their tough and gritty champion.
Hillary wants the oil companies to pay for the gas tax this summer, so you don't have to.
Trying to save them a few more bucks every time they fill up at the gas pump.
Hillary's the one who gets it.
Hillary Clinton is the candidate that's going to fight for working people.
Never mind that the latest CBS News New York Times poll shows that the great majority of voters think candidates' calls for a gas tax holiday are political ploys. So will that cost her here in Indiana? The most recent poll here has Hillary Clinton up 6 points heading into primary day tomorrow. Katie?
Jim Axelrod, thanks very much, Jim. I talked one-on-one with both Democratic candidates earlier today. First, Senator Obama. Let me talk to you about the primaries tomorrow. You have outspent Hillary Clinton in several states like Ohio and Pennsylvania. You are the front runner currently. Why wouldn't you win in the Hoosier state?
Well, look, there's no doubt that we've had a tough couple of weeks with the remarks of my former pastor and the wall-to-wall coverage on that. But it's going to depend on turnout, and it's going to depend on whether or not voters, looking at the choices, decide, do we want to keep on doing the same things that we've been doing in the past, or is this an opportunity for us to make a clean break, stop with a special interest-driven, dominated Washington, and start having our leaders talk honestly with the American people about how we're going to meet future challenges.
Senator Obama, what will you say to those superdelegates if you don't do better among white working class voters tomorrow? How will you convince them of your electability?
Well, I think, Katie, this issue has come up lately because it's the only argument that Senator Clinton has for winning the nomination. And the fact that we're in the lead as a consequence of the results in primaries and caucuses, as well as the popular vote, indicates the degree to which I think our vision is the one that can win in November.
You were opposed to Senator Clinton's plan for a gas tax holiday. Are you proposing any kind of short-term relief for this current gas crisis that is affecting so many Americans?
Well, look, I meet Americans every day who are really hard hit. They're seeing, $100 out of their paychecks for the month because of rising gas prices. That can make the difference about whether or not they can pay their bills. But understand this, Katie, the idea of a gas tax holiday is a phony approach. It is a gimmick. This is a typical Washington response trying to get through the next election instead of taking seriously the need to raise fuel efficiency standards, invest in alternative fuels, solve this problem, and give people some meaningful relief. And that's why I think it's a real choice for people in this upcoming election.
Senator Barack Obama, I asked Senator Clinton about her gas tax holiday proposal and criticism that it's politically motivated and economically unsound.
I'm not proposing that we don't replace the revenues that would be lost. That's Senator McCain's position. In fact, I'm saying we should make the oil companies pay the gas tax this summer out of their record profits so that we don't make the deficit bigger, we don't deplete the Highway Trust Fund. But all across Indiana and North Carolina, people are responding because they're living with it. They're looking at their own economic situation. They're their personal economists, and they're saying, we just can't deal with this if they're truckers, if they commute long distances, if they have to use their truck or their vehicles for their jobs like farmers do. It's really a burden. And there is no contradiction between providing immediate relief by trying to give folks, on average, it would be $70. For a lot of people, it would be a lot more because they drive more, while at the same time we try to get a president who's actually going to declare energy independence and start us on a path to get off our dependence on foreign oil.
But Senator Clinton, a lot of people say it would be a lot less money than $70 for those 3 months. And Senator Obama said earlier today your plan's a gimmick, it's phony, and rather than helping consumers, it will just lead oil companies to raise prices. And by the way, it would never pass in Congress.
Well, number one, I think we've got to start going after the oil companies. Senator Obama supported a gas tax holiday without paying for it 3 times when he was in the state Senate. So I'm really focusing on what we can do to give people immediate relief, Katie. I don't see this false choice that Senator Obama and others set up between, we've got to wait for the long term, get a president in January. Oil hit $120.21 a barrel today.
After tomorrow, there will be more superdelegates up for grabs than elected delegates. You need the vast majority of these remaining superdelegates to become the nominee. And yet, even since your victory in Pennsylvania, Senator Obama has picked up 22 new ones. You've only gotten 13. Why is that?
Well, I think we're making a lot of progress, and many people are waiting to see what happens in the remaining contest, which I think is a smart idea. The delegate race is very tight. Neither of us can get to the nomination without getting a lot of delegates. But I think people are going to ask themselves, number one, who'd be the best president? Who has the ability to beat John McCain? And I think they'll look at, where we stand when it comes to the votes of those who actually cast them over the course of the last month.
Senator Hillary Clinton. Senator, thank you.
Thank you.
When I asked if she'll stay in the race no matter what happens tomorrow, Senator Clinton said she had waged a vigorous campaign and made up some ground, and she said, quote, I'm going to see what happens tomorrow. Now to the CBS News Money Watch. As you heard, oil was selling at more than $120 a barrel. It closed at a record $119.97, up more than $3.50 since Friday. But for a change, gasoline did not set a record today. In fact, it's down a penny to a nationwide average of $3.61 a gallon. In Southeast Asia tonight, utter devastation in the nation of Myanmar, also known as Burma. A powerful cyclone over the weekend killed at least 4,000 people. One official says the death toll could reach 10,000. The U.S. has long been at odds with the ruling military leaders in Myanmar. Today, First Lady Laura Bush made an unusual personal appeal to them to accept American disaster assistance.
I hope that the military will realize they have to accept aid from everybody they can possibly accept it from, and maybe that will be something good that can come out of this terrible destruction.
Mrs. Bush criticized Myanmar's government for failing to warn people the storm was coming, and tonight there are serious questions about whether the military is willing or even able to deal with the devastation. More on that from Barry Peterson.
The tin-roofed shantytowns were no match for 120-mile-an-hour winds. No one knows how many are homeless. Estimates range from 90,000 and up. And getting help to rural areas is next to impossible. This is one of the poorest nations in Asia. Roads were not that good to begin with. Now, many are just gone. In cities, soldiers started the cleanup, but even here, where buildings are better built, state-run TV described extensive damage.
Roofs of houses were stripped, trees and lampposts and some buildings collapsed.
Myanmar is run by a repressive military regime, with the top general described as a high school dropout who reportedly takes advice from astrologers. The regime had its soldiers shoot to kill last September when monks and others took to the streets demanding democracy. After last year's riots, the generals were furious about criticism from around the world. Now, some of those same countries say they are ready to send in urgent supplies, food and water and plastic for tents so people at least have shelter. But it's unclear just how much aid, if any, the regime will take from outsiders it considers its enemies, even if that means its own desperate people will pay the price. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Tokyo.
Meanwhile, in Somalia, tens of thousands rioted in the streets of the capital today, angry over skyrocketing food prices. Government troops opened fire on the protesters, killing at least 2 of them. The price of corn and rice has doubled this year, and some merchants refuse to accept Somalia's currency, insisting they be paid in more expensive U.S. dollars. There is much more CBS News ahead, including the return of executions in the U.S. A Georgia man may be the first to die since the Supreme Court upheld lethal injection. In a matter of hours, a Georgia man could become the first person in America to be executed by lethal injection in nearly 8 months. It comes after the Supreme Court upheld this form of the death penalty last month. Across the country, more states are reconsidering capital punishment and reaching different conclusions. Here's Mark Strassman.
In this room, William Earl Lind expects to die tomorrow night by lethal injection for murdering his girlfriend. Georgia's parole board denied him clemency this afternoon. Across America, 14 other executions are scheduled in the next 6 months, and they all unnerve Kirk Bloodsworth.
Nobody wanted to believe me.
In 1984, Bloodsworth was charged with the unthinkable, the rape and murder of 9-year-old Dawn Hamilton.
I knew this thing was going south in a hurry, and I was on a freight train to death row.
Found guilty, Bloodsworth was innocent. He lost 8 years, and his biggest believer, his mother.
I had to go see her body in handcuffs and shackles for 5 minutes. And go back to prison.
In 1993, Bloodsworth was freed, the first death row inmate exonerated by DNA. Wrongful convictions, one reason why in 5 states lawmakers are seriously debating repealing capital punishment. But 5 states have moved in a very different direction, passing laws that expanded death row to execute people convicted of a crime other than murder. In particular, child rapists. Louisiana has 2 of them on death row. Both victims lived. Can Louisiana execute their rapists? The U.S. Supreme Court's about to decide. 4 other states have similar laws.
It is a crime that, for the very worst child rapists, juries should have before them as a permissible option the most serious punishment.
But no one wants to get it wrong. And just last Friday, North Carolina freed LaVon Jones, America's 129th exonerated death row inmate.
Now, I'm not a mathematician, but that would give me pause.
The system that once had Bloodworth's number faces new life and death questions. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Cambridge, Maryland.
We have some remarkable pictures from South America now, where a long dormant volcano blew its top on Friday. It's the first time the volcano has erupted in thousands of years, and it sent ash and smoke 2 miles into the sky. An entire town of more than 4,000 was evacuated as a precaution. When we come back, a vanishing world under the sea and the man trying to save it. Finally tonight, the fight to rescue a sunken treasure. The treasure is coral, which protects our shores and even provides medicine. But it's disappearing 4 times as fast as the rainforest. Here's our science and technology correspondent, Daniel Seberg.
They're a carnival of color and life. Coral reefs cover less than 1% of the Earth's surface, but they're home to millions of marine plants and animals. But rising ocean temperatures have claimed 20% of them around the world since the 1950s. Another 50% could be wiped out by 2030.
We need to do everything we possibly can to save the remaining ones we've got. My research might be able to help, then I'm willing to give it a go.
Andrew Baker hopes to, in a sense, inoculate the corals to build their resistance against the rapidly growing threat of warming waters.
Basically, we're going to go down and very carefully, almost surgically, remove these colonies. We're going to pick about a dozen of these colonies.
About 10 miles off the coast of Miami in Biscayne Bay, I watched as Baker and his team harvested a dozen mustard hill corals, the first step in his experiment. This reef system is today a fraction of what it was just 20 years ago.
So the corals that would normally be building this underwater structure, building this habitat, they've all been lost.
Lost to what's called bleaching. Corals thrive because of their give-and-take partnership with microscopic algae, each providing food and protection for the other.
The problem is that partnership between the coral and its algae is very, very fragile, very sensitive. And all it takes is a degree or two above the normal temperatures, and corals will lose these algae.
And that's exactly what's happening in this IMAX time-lapse footage. The once vibrant coral turns a ghostly white and dies. A lifeless landscape remains.
Algal symbionts that are inside corals.
Back in the lab, Baker proudly showed off one of the world's great collections of coral.
We have about 12,000 samples collected from reefs all over the world.
Coral DNA is stored in a supercooled vault, and what Baker's team discovered here is what gives him hope, that there are varieties of that life-giving algae, and a few, from places like Africa, have a higher tolerance to heat.
And that allows them to adapt very, very quickly, much more quickly than sort of Darwinian natural selection. It doesn't take centuries or generations or decades.
Some researchers say Baker's plan to inject corals with the hardier algae is a crapshoot at best. But he says that's no reason not to try. Daniel Seberg, CBS News, Miami.
And that is the CBS Evening News for tonight. I'm Katie Couric. Thanks for watching. I'll be back here tomorrow. Good night.